a story about the 6 weeks I spent along the Camino de Santiago in May of 2012. The next morning, things began to fall apart. At first, I thought mosquitoes were the cause of the itchy bites all over my back. Indeed, there were no window screens anywhere along the Camino. Then I realized that was probably because along the Camino, mosquitoes didn't seem to exist. As we had planned the night before, Rick and I met in a small market and cafe on the first floor of my hostel. After a quick breakfast of toast and marmalade, we were on our way. I told Rick about my bites, which by now I discovered also covered my upper arms. A word floated in the air between us, but neither of us wanted to give it voice. Could it be? Did I have bed bugs? Rick and I spent the day traversing northern Spain, trying not to spend too much time reflecting on all the things that could have caused my bites. Maybe it isn't bed bugs, I thought. As much as I tried to distract my thoughts, the itching was a constant reminder something was wrong. As we walked along, pushing our hiking sticks into the ground, he came up with a long list of possibilities. A sun rash, an allergy to something I had eaten, or an allergy to the new shampoo I had used the previous night for the first time. Let's change the subject, I finally said. We stopped at a cafe, and I used a computer there to email my family an update, trying to make it sound like a minor inconvenience. It's Sunday, and I'm on my way to Bookstore something or other. All is going well, except that I woke up with bites this morning, and I'm nervous they are bedbug bites. We'll hopefully have a pharmacy in the next town that can check it out. Both Rick and I tried to ignore my periodic scratching, eventually remembered there were no pharmacies or physicians' offices open because it was Sunday. So even if we could magically intuit the cause of my symptoms, no treatment would be available until tomorrow. After walking nearly 18 miles, we reached our destination for that night, Boadilla del Camino. There we saw Phyllis and Buddy from the previous day. Phyllis took one look at my arms, and as an experienced pilgrim who had seen such things, declared that I was indeed having an allergic reaction to bedbugs. She recommended Benadryl, but didn't have any to offer me. The only hope I had of treatment lay in the bags of other pilgrims. It was at this moment that Rick remembered he had one Benadryl left. In a move to lighten his pack, he had tossed many of his other medical supplies the previous week. At 6:30 that night, I swallowed the pill, hoping it would quell my desire to scratch my upper arms to shreds. By the time we finished dinner, I was doing all I could to not fall asleep at the table. With great effort, I climbed the stairs to my room and heaved myself up into the top bunk. I put in my earplugs, pulled my eye mask down to block out the sun that wouldn't set until 10:30, and went to sleep. The insatiable urge to scratch frequently interrupted my sleep, and the next morning I was alarmed to find that the bites had spread. Tiny bumps now appeared on my forearms, my belly, and the right side of my face. I was in trouble. Feeling drugged and sleep deprived, I met Rick for breakfast and laid out my plan. The next town from Mista was only 3.6 miles away, and by indications in the guidebook might be large enough to have a pharmacy, but probably not a doctor. My goal was to walk there and wait for the pharmacy to open. Pharmacists in Spain could diagnose and prescribe, and I hoped I could get something to subdue the itching. After that, we would walk until I found a town whose albergue had laundry machines. Before I had left for the Camino, I had read that the only way to rid a person of bedbugs was to wash everything in very hot water or dry it at a very high temperature. I still didn't want to believe that I had bedbugs. And yes, I felt guilty sleeping in the hostel last night without telling anyone that I might be a carrier. But I was in a town with no other place to stay, and I feared they would kick me out. Rick did his best to reassure me, but I still felt bad. We arrived in Formista 15 minutes before the pharmacy opened. Rick and I positioned ourselves at the outdoor patio of a cafe just down the street. I suggested to him that he could continue on without me, but he gently declined, saying he would wait. I was getting better at accepting other people's generosity along the Camino. How lucky was I to have a friend who would listen to me complain, who would offer encouragement and wait for me while I sought help. In just 2 weeks since I had started the Camino, Rick had become not only an occasional walking companion, but also my cheerleader, my confidant, and my advisor. I left my pack with Rick and walked toward the flashing green plus sign, the sign for pharmacies in Spain. The bell rang as I walked into the sterile room. The walls were lined with shelves behind glass doors, and a man came out from a back room and said something in Spanish. I don't know the language, but I assumed he had asked, "Can I help you?" "Sí," I said, and raised my shirt sleeve to show him my left upper arm. It looked like a pebbled road covered with bumps. He leaned over the counter to have a closer look. I then turned to show him the bites on my right arm. He nodded and said something in Spanish. "Peregrino," I said, pointing to myself. "English or Francais?" Could he speak either of the two languages I knew? "No," he said, looking sympathetic. Then I cupped my hand and moved it up and down, itching the air above the bites, giving an exasperated look. He understood and indicated to me that I had bedbugs, just what I'd suspected. He started pantomiming. He looked as if he was washing something. Todo, he said. Caliente. Oh, hot. Yes, I knew this. I had to wash everything I owned in super hot water to rid myself of them. He walked over to a shelf and pulled out 2 boxes. He returned to the counter and opened the first to display the tube of cream inside, and he rubbed his arm, indicating how I should use the cream. Non sole, he told me, which I understood meant that I could not put on this cream if I was going to be exposing my skin to the sun. He produced a piece of paper, drew a sun on it, and then drew an X through it to be sure that I understood. Because I had planned to walk another 10 miles that day, I decided not to smother the stuff all over my body until I reached my destination that night. So much for easing the itching. He opened the second box to show me the pills inside, and thankfully I picked up more Spanish than I realized. It was an antihistamine, according to what little I could read on the box. He explained he wanted me to take one of these pills at breakfast and another at dinner, and to be sure I understood, he returned to the paper on which he had drawn the sun, and wrote Desayano 1, and under it Chena 1. I thanked him profusely, gracias being another word I understood in Spanish, and I left the store, not after he reminded me again to wash everything. Todo caliente. Did you get something, Rick asked hopefully when I returned to the patio. Upon hearing of my success, he let out a sigh of relief, and a large smile spread across his face. I immediately took one of the pills, and we started on our way again. I felt less like itching after taking the antihistamine, but was alarmed to notice there were now bites on my hands and the other side of my face. If I had bed bugs, would the bumps show up hours after I woke? Rick and I stopped every couple miles for a snack or a rest, and things were looking up, and then the sun came out. Usually I'm a big fan of the sun and the warmth it provides, but along the Camino, I thanked God for the coolness of cloudy days. And as it grew hotter, the sweat began to pour up our brows. After finishing 9 miles of walking, Rick and I were relieved to read in the guidebook that we were in for a delightful 4.8 kilometers of shade. Perhaps Mr. Brierly, the author of my guidebook, walked with a parasol that day for his shade, because we found no such escape from the sun's rays along the path we had mentioned. There aren't even stumps here, Rick said, looking for proof that at one time trees did provide a respite for pilgrims along the stream. Finally, a place of relief came into view, a hermitage at the end of the path. We were surprised to see cars parked beside it and about 50 people milling around, chatting as if at a picnic. As we plodded along, I wondered if it was a mirage. I was physically drained, my water bottles were empty, and the hermitage did not seem to be getting any closer. When we finally arrived, I was wiped out. I didn't care about the fancy-dressed people, why they were there, or what they thought. I found a shady spot, threw my pack down, and told Rick I had to cry for a few minutes. This was not the first time he saw my tears, nor would it be the last. He tried to reassure me. I need some water, I said through my tears, and I need to stop walking. Rick gently told me he would go find the fountain our guidebook indicated was here somewhere. After having my cry, I took some deep breaths. Ready to face the world again, I lugged my pack onto my shoulders and went to find